Well, Dylan's History of Sports is back, and this time we're going Three Lions and Stars and Stripes. I'm talking World Cup with my friend from the UK, and probably a little nervous, but excited watching England play the 2026 World Cup. I believe the Three Lions start in Arlington, Texas against Croatia. Then they play Ghana and Panama. Am I correct?
Correct. Yeah, everyone's kind of already predicting that we're going to win the first two games and then be able to rest everybody against Panama because they're such a weak opponent, which gives the opportunity for Jordan Henderson to play a full 90 minutes at probably his last World Cup. The trouble is I'm a pessimistic England fan, Dylan, who doesn't believe we're going to be able to win the first two games and be able to rest all our players against Panama. So, look, it's a very exciting time for soccer in the US, Dylan. Great for the US, Canada, Mexico to host the tournament. Mexico playing all their 5 games at home, right? Or their 3 games at home?
All 3 group games at home.
And then I think if they advance, they're still in Mexico, right? So I think that's the that's the path that every blinded England fan that believes we're going to progress out of the groups with no problems thinks it's going to happen, is that we're going to play Mexico, and that's where it could get tricky. But look, I think almost every team comes with question marks this year. I think if you were just to look on paper and look at France, you'd go, look, that team is too good. But their defence is a little bit suspect. I think there's always that opportunity, Dylan, when you've got too many good players, that it's hard to make them gel. You don't really know what your best front 3 is. I mean, they've got Mbappe, Elise, Cherki, Doué, Barcola, Dembele, all these different players, Mbappe, Dembele. Too many, like an embarrassment of riches, right? But then their central midfield, probably not very good. Like, they're still talking about playing N'Golo Kante and people like that. So then you've got Spain, who don't have Orizabal's been pretty good for Real Sociedad, and he's done well in his short time with the Spanish national team, but not a recognised striker, right? So they, in tournaments gone past, they've had Alvaro Morata, and we know, you all know, Dylan, as a Chelsea fan, what that's been like. Albeit he's had a decent, career with Spain, but you've got those question marks around Spain, and then you think, okay, well, Brazil and Argentina, neither of those are kind of what they used to be, right? Lionel Messi's going into his twilight years. They probably won that for him in 2022, and Emi Martinez obviously being coming up trumps there. And look, they've still got a good team. They've got Julian Alvarez and Enzo Fernandez and all these different players, right? But as always, their defense is a little bit suspect, and maybe just Messi's just too old at this point to have the impact that he would normally have in a World Cup. And then you look at Brazil, Dylan. I mean, like, their team's pretty unrecognisable, right? I mean, there's a chance that Igor Thiago is going to be one of their shining stars, and he comes from Brentford, and Danilo, who left Nottingham Forest to go back to play in Botafogo against the World Cup team. He's been playing brilliantly, but I don't think they're winning a World Cup with a Forest reject. So, I mean, Forest reject's unfair. He was injured, and then there was some dodgy dealings. But, he's not our star player by any means. So there's question marks around everybody. Obviously, we'll get into kind of, I know I've just stolen the thunder there, Dylan, of just reeling off all the top teams. But there'll be some dark horses. A couple of teams I didn't mention there in Germany and Holland are always going to be kind of thought about, but I wouldn't necessarily think it's a good tournament for them. There's a couple of teams that people are really excited about. So I'll leave the other ones for a little bit further on in the show. But burying the lead, Dylan, we haven't talked about USA there.
I mean, and Tom and I will go back and forth. We'll ask each other about our team. So Tom being English and I'm West American. So Tom, how big is the World Cup in England? Because we know it's been 60 years since the Three Lions won a home World Cup at Wembley. But how big is the World Cup over there?
Yeah, it's everything. Like, I think that's what everyone kind of looks forward to. I think this year has been the build-up's been a lot quieter than normal, but I think that's I don't know what that is really, what's caused that, but I think eventually, Thursday will roll around and Mexico and South Africa will get us underway in the World Cup, and we'll all get excited again. And of course, then England have that first game against Croatia next week. So yeah, it means everything. It's very excited. I think we're always called a bit arrogant for saying football's coming home because we're not the only people that play football, and we're certainly not the best at it. But yeah, it is everything, and people are very excited. I think expectations are a little bit lower this time around than the final time with Southgate. Especially at the Euros. I think we kind of thought we were going to win the Euros being at home, and 2 finals now where we've kind of not painted ourselves in glory, right? I think this time we've come in with a bit of, trepidation, right? A couple of our players have kind of lost a bit of form, and we don't know what Tuchel's going to be like at a World Cup or any sort of tournament, really. I mean, we just don't know what that's going to entail. The warm-up games haven't been particularly inspiring. We obviously lost to Japan. So, yeah, there's obviously excitement about the tournament itself, but the team leaves a bit to be desired. But what about you, Dylan? I think it's probably a combination of both things, right? Like the biggest tournament, I guess, probably in your memory, right, in terms of hosting. Then you've obviously got a world-class manager in Pochettino. Is there an expectation to go far?
Yeah, I think this team should be thinking quarterfinals, if not semifinals. I mean, hosting basically a home World Cup. Well, friends to the north and south of us. But, if Russia could get to a World Cup quarterfinal at home in 2018, I think the squad should be thinking the same, if not one step higher. I mean, defensively, I don't think the U.S. defense is great. I mean, I don't know what Matt Freese is doing against Germany in the last warm-up game, but going forward, I like the team. Low ball and Balogun putting up big goals this year with Monaco. Pulisic looks like he's catching some good form. Tyler Adams, I don't think we can play without him. I think the wing backs are going to be key with Dest and Anthony Robinson. Obviously, Robinson scoring a brilliant goal in Chicago on Saturday night, and Dest getting up and down the pitch if he ever stays healthy. I think the key with the U.S. defense will be Chris Richards, whether he's fully fit, because as we both know, Richards has been a key reason why Palace won the UEFA Conference League this year and won the FA Cup last year. And I think if Richards is healthy, it makes the back line more formidable. Yeah,
will it be Dest or Freeman, I guess? Or, I mean, they might be both playing, right?
I think it might be both. I mean, Dest could play as a wing back. Freeman probably ends up as a third center back with Ream and Richards.
Yeah. I mean, look, I love Tim Ream, right? But if we're relying on him in 2026, I guess it's tough. You're right about Chris Richards. Look, I think this year you've got like a real spine, right? Like you've got Chris Richards at centre back, who you should really be able to rely on. You've got, McKennie in midfield, and obviously Pulisic and Balogun in those kind of attacking areas. It's pretty exciting. It's just that kind of depth that you lack, right? In terms of, is the goalie good enough? Are the 2 midfielders behind McKennie good enough? Like, that's where things fall down. But I think also there's a lot to be said for just a bit of continuity, an inspiring manager, and being at home. That comes with certain trademarks. And I think I guess it kind of depends where you think you're going to finish in the group. Like if you finish first, you should have an easier game. There's obviously talk about like you don't want to finish first because of the way it kind of. There's so many different permutations, and you've got a really tough group. I think that's one thing that we can't really get away from, is that I think that people are kind of putting USA through, but Turkey have got some good players. Almost every tournament they're kind of considered dark horses, and they never really live up to it. But they've got some standout players. You've got Arda Güler and people like that, and then you've got Paraguay, who look, they're not good, but they tend to kind of
Paraguay annoys teams because we know Paraguay can play that low block and just frustrate the what out of teams.
Yeah, and I mean, look, Australia are terrible. They should stick to cricket or rugby. They're definitely not, a soccer team. That gone are the days of them having kind of Harry Kewell and Tim Cahill and players like that. But I think if you get out of the group, there'll be quite a lot of belief, and then you could set yourself up with a reasonable path. I just did a very quick sort of predictor as we came on, and this is based on kind of you getting to finishing first. It means you could play Scotland, I think, in the in the round of 32. And
no chances with Scotland.
Yeah, I mean it's tough. If I'm pessimistic about England, it's hard for me to be then over optimistic about USA, right? But I think you should be really excited.
Yeah, and with England, there's good, bad, and ugly moments. I mean, in your lifetime, what's the best England moment you can remember at a World Cup? It could be a goal, it could be a save, it could be a moment that sticks out in your brain. Good. Positive. All positive.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. I think I was very, very young, but Michael Owen's goal in 1998 was obviously exciting. And then you had obviously the tragedy of David Beckham getting himself sent off. I mean, I was only kind of 5 when that happened, but I do remember having the Michael Owen pajamas. So that was fun. I think cheating slightly, the World Cup qualifiers when David Beckham scored that free kick to qualify against Greece is exciting.
At the Stratford end of Old Trafford, right?
Yeah, exactly. A massive, massive goal. And then, I think sort of more kind of modern times. I mean, it was heartbreak, missing penalties against France. I distinctly remember being at a wedding when Harry Maguire scored against Sweden. I think, header from a corner, that was exciting. Kind of made us feel like it was happening. Maybe winning on penalties for the first time and breaking that hoodoo was good. Yeah, there's been good times, right? The biggest heartaches are coming to Euros recently. Like, it felt like we should definitely have beaten Italy. Luke Shaw scores that early goal, and then you go to to the final last time, and we just didn't turn up. Ollie Watkins' goal against Holland, it was amazing, huge scenes, and then we go and just lay an egg in the final. So obviously Euros versus World Cup, but there's been more agony than excitement as an because it's not even like, I think when people sort of talk about us being arrogant and like we go into every tournament and think we should win it, you look at that kind of golden era when Sven-Goran Eriksson was there. We had like a young Wayne Rooney and Lampard and Gerrard and Ashley Cole, Sol Campbell, John Terry,
Rio,
like incredible players like Rooney and Owen playing up front. Beckham, obviously, like, you do feel like we should have won something. Right? It shouldn't have been since 1960s. I should have seen something in my lifetime that's given us joy. And so maybe it's good that we're coming in with slightly less optimism. We were kind of joint favourites with France early on in the betting, and it's obviously now gone the way of Spain and France. And I think that's a good thing, but I also think it's a reflection of some questionable squad choices. I mean, as a Forest fan, I never really truly thought that Morgan Gibbs-White would go. Because I feel like his position's still best behind the striker, and you've obviously got Morgan Rogers, Jude Bellingham, Eze. Like, is he ever going to start over those three? No. So do I really want him sitting on the bench? No. But the last 5 or 6 games of the Premier League season, he played off the left and played really, really well with Vitor Pereira. And I just think when you look at Anthony Gordon and the form outside of the Champions League this season has been really, really disappointing. He's had a bad year for Newcastle in the Premier League. Then suddenly got this massive move to Barcelona, which maybe is what has kind of caused the disruption and maybe not played as well.
And maybe Anthony Gordon scoring 4 goals in that Champions League not playoff, but round before the round of 16. Yeah. But that's that.
But it all, so many goals kind of get Karabag right, and then you've got this kind of maybe slight feud between Gordon and Rashford. Rashford's just been on loan to Barcelona, wanted that move. Gordon's got the move. It doesn't feel great. Like Saka's probably not had the moments. Like I thought he was, he got a decent amount of stick for the Champions League final about how his attacking output wasn't very good. He did a fantastic job, him and Mosquera on Kvaratskhelia on the wing.
It was basically like Griezmann in the semi-final. It's just Griezmann ran himself out of gas.
Yeah.
Saka was out of gas after 80 minutes.
But he just defended really. He was quite selfless, quite a team player, and I think he does that for England. That's why people kind of like him. But you do need a player now that's going to kind of, because I think Elliot Anderson, right, fantastic player, going to keep hold of the ball, dribble. Is he going to play that kind of killer pass? Hopefully, but like him and Declan Rice, both really good at kind of being mobile, getting up and down the pitch, finding good passes, laying it off to more technical players. Bellingham then is the one that you kind of expect to drive things forward, but he's had a really stop-start season for Real Madrid, so it's like you hang your hat on Harry Kane.
Morgan Rogers scored in a European final a few weeks ago.
Yeah, and I think that's the problem as well, is that if you've got Bellingham's almost certainly getting a play, right? But Morgan Rogers has been trusted by Tuchel quite a lot. He started a lot of games under him. Obviously, Bellingham not being available. I wouldn't be surprised if we see Morgan Rogers in the first game, and then Bellingham comes on, and then hopefully impresses, and then he starts the next few. There's always talk about John Stones starts. John Stones doesn't play football barely for a year, right? So it's tough. You then got Reece James, who's like this ultra reliable, exciting right back, but only reliable when he's fit. Like he has injury problems. John Stones has injury problems. So then you could very easily be looking at who a right back. What we're going to do if that happens? Like Livramento or Jed Spence, whatever. Like it's going to be really tough to get excited. I know we've got Dan Burn in the England squad. I mean, crikey! Like if we got Dan Burn playing at any point during this tournament, we're going to get really upset. So
and you don't even have Lewis Hall as the backup left back. You've got his teammate.
An incredible decision to leave out Lewis Hall. I think the excitement about Lewis Hall got a little bit out of hand. Took people to best left back in the league, but he was very good. Whereas Dan Burn continues to prove that he's not good enough at left back. He's not good enough at centre back. And unlike Maguire, who comes on and you look like he could score a goal, Dan Burn doesn't do that either. So all those reasons to leave Dan Burn at home, he still plays. Jed Spence has, just nearly got relegated with Tottenham. Like, do we really need to play him at kind of left or right back at any point? I know he's there because he's versatile, but Luke Shaw's just started every Premier League game for the first time in his career, probably. So, like, it's some interesting decisions, right, with the England team, and just slightly miffed with some of the decisions Tuchel made. Now he's paid to make these decisions. I think sometimes, Dylan, I think that's probably like one of the good things about being a USA fan, and I mean this with no, not being patronising in any way. Sometimes it's nice that you only have those select few players to pick from, and you kind of know who's going, because otherwise you just end up spending the whole time debating whether if you'd have taken Gibbs White, it'd have been better. If you'd have taken Cole Palmer, could he have had that moment of magic? If we, should we have taken Calvert-Lewin, for example, right? Like all these ridiculous statements that you make, maybe that's easier when, USA pick the players they can pick and that's it. Sometimes, I don't know, there might be something there.
I'll say this, part of me is thinking that the U.S. should have picked Diego Luna, whether he starts or just for a backup, because I think we need some excitement. But you know what, best moments for us, probably the Landon Donovan goal against Algeria 2010.
Yeah.
and then recently probably the 2-0 win over Mexico in 2002. Not just winning, but beating our most hated of enemies in the round of 16.
Yeah, I mean, and that's the thing. And sometimes, right, I've just ranted about how we're getting to quarterfinals and semi-finals and finals and being disappointed, right? Sometimes, like, being grateful for what you got is a massive thing as well. And, Southgate's got us close. Can Tuchel be the difference? I do think he's, like, so much better than, Southgate in terms of, like, quality. But in terms of, like, galvanising a team and, like, I don't think...
I mean, you did pretty well with Chelsea 2021 Champions League.
Yeah, I just don't know if he's like the same man. Like, is he the type that's going to put an arm around someone, or is he going to go, right, you're not good enough, and drag him off? And which one's the right response? It didn't quite work for Southgate. Do we need to stick to that strategy? I don't know. But like, what's the kind of sentiment around Pochettino, Dylan? And because obviously there's a lot of talk about him going in the summer, and once it's done, he's off. He's going to go back to club football. Doesn't feel like he's had like the best start to the US manager.
I think there's a mixed reaction with Pochettino. Obviously, the rumor is he's going to be AC Milan's next manager, but I mean, the warm-up games showed me something because we beat Senegal 3-2, and then played fairly well against Germany. I mean, sure, it's maybe not the best Germany squad, but a really good German squad. So that tells me something. And the fact that I think the one advantage that Pochettino's got compared to a normal international break, he's got more time to spend with his players. It's one thing if you spend an international break and get, 2 games and a handful of training sessions. Pochettino's going to be with these guys for several weeks, hopefully.
And I think the other thing that was, the smart thing you've done is you've played these tougher opponents, right? Like you've played.
Unfortunately, we haven't beaten a European opponent since 1950, or at least seems like it.
Yeah. But like to play Belgium, Portugal, Senegal, Germany in those kind of warm-up games, I think it's just smart. Like we play these warm-up games. We're playing against New Zealand. What do we learn playing against New Zealand? Literally, as you said, 0, because if you don't beat them 6-0, no one's excited. Do we need to worry about what Chris Wood's going to bring to the World Cup? I love Chris Wood, but no, we don't need to worry about it. All we're going to do is go, well, Anthony Gordon wasn't very impressive when he came on. Like, Harry Kane scored. As soon as we took him off, we didn't score again. Like, you kind of learn. Probably what I've learned is that we're very reliant on Harry Kane. And
that's not necessarily a problem.
Yeah, well, it's funny. Like, I've always been a bit of a Harry Kane hater. And this year, you just kind of have to take your cap off to him and just say, look, I feel like this last couple of seasons he's proven he is the best of the best, right, in terms of strikers. I think he is better than Mbappe at this point. So, but I don't want to be relying on 32, 33-year-old who's had injury problems, who's, missed penalties at a crucial time. He hasn't got that kind of clutch gene in the same way like obviously Ronaldo's been pretty terrible at World Cups, but like Messi is, obviously dragged his whole team to a World Cup. It is difficult. And I mean, like even like the US, right? Like, the Pulisic fever always takes over with the US, and whether he's quite as good as, you guys seem to think he is. I mean, maybe not you yourself, you're a European, soccer fan, right? But like, he is like a superstar for you. And I don't know if over here we don't, treat him with the respect he deserves, or you guys over-treat him. I can't quite work out which one it is, but, certainly just based on his time at Chelsea, he's probably a little bit overrated, but he's also had a very good kind of, career with Dortmund and Milan as well. So, it doesn't fill me with a lot of excitement from your point that, like, Pochettino's already being linked with moved away. Now, like Tuchel, for example, was only signed on until the end of the World Cup. Like, it was like basically if you don't impress at the World Cup, you're gone. all of a sudden he signs a new contract in the kind of build up, which makes me believe he's gone, right, there's something here that I want to work with. If I don't win this time, I can take it to the Euros. Whereas Poch is basically just going, look, I'm in it for the kind of World Cup hosted in our country, and there's not really much for me to. And again, like that's probably fair enough. Like what you've got 4 years before another World Cup or something he's actually interested in. So he's not going to wait a whole 4 years to do this tournament again when there's probably, as you said, a big club job out there. Is AC Milan the job that it once was? No. But yeah, just it feels like he hasn't seen something from the squad. I don't know if he was promised that like good players were coming through and they just haven't. Whether he's is he inspired by the fact that he's got to play Tim Ream for another tournament? Like it's really tough, isn't it, to know what's going. Only he knows what's kind of going on in his head, I guess.
Yeah, and then watching this England team, you probably have seen it. England's not exactly the most creative team. Not a lot of expected goals. The possession, all over the place. The progression is slower than a turtle. What's the issue with England's possession and lack of progression?
Yeah, I think it's just he hasn't really found the team to settle on, right? Like there is a couple of question marks. I mean, look, he's managed 13 matches for England. He's gone a whole thing without conceding a goal or we haven't conceded a goal in the whole time of the qualifying, right? It's hard to know. I just don't think we're quite as good as we were. I think it's as simple as that. I think actually that Southgate had the better team. I think it's
okay. Well then, are England overly reliant on a certain Harry Kane?
Yeah, I think so. Like as I said, I love Elliot Anderson to pieces. He's probably going to go for over 100 million. But do we need Elliot Anderson and Declan Rice in the same midfield? Are they doing the same sort of job? Is Bellingham or Morgan Rogers the answer? I hope so. Right? I'd love to be wrong. Right? Like I'd love to be wrong, and Saka comes to the fore, and Gordon suddenly has the kind of tournament that makes you realise that's why he's going to Barcelona. But yeah, I think we are going to be very heavily reliant on Harry Kane, and that's not been as you said, it should be something it's not a bad place to be, but by the same token, I don't know that I'd want to rely on one player. But I think that's the thing with the US. Like, are you're not reliant on Pulisic like you were, once upon a time, right? Like you've got Balogun, you've got McKinney, you've got,
Malik Tillman with Bayern Leverkusen.
Yeah, like you've just got it's a more well-rounded team. You've got Anthony Robinson going down, Dest, and I really like Tyler Adams. I mean, he's an absolute menace, and he's going to foul a lot of times. But I do think he's quite dynamic at times. So I think you've got a good core. Your problem's going to be, Dylan, if you're running out of ideas during the game, who's going to come on off the bench and really kind of make a difference. I think that's where you guys are going to potentially fall down.
Well, a guy like Timothy Weah, who I think started at the last World Cup, will be our super sub. He'll bring a lot of energy and pace last 20, 25 minutes.
Yeah.
And maybe Ricardo Pepe brings some goals too.
Yeah, good goal. Good season with PSV. I guess Haji Wright's just got kind of promoted into the Premier League. Maybe there is more there than Giovanni Reina does. I mean, he's struggling, right? But there's players. I'm surprised Austin Trusty doesn't get in to the team more. I feel like he's quite dynamic on corners, and maybe Tim Ream.
Sebastian Berhalter could be our corner taker if you're looking at set piece, but who knows what happens there?
Yeah, no, true. Who do you getting away from our teams for a minute? Who before this kind of started, and we got closer to World Cup fever? Who was your team that you kind of? Was it France that you were kind of look, they're going to win, or was there someone else for you?
No, I mean, I've gone back and forth, but I just think France has got so many options up front. It's ridiculous. Every major tournament, France is. I mean, the men who didn't make this French team could be playing for like every other team at this World Cup.
Yeah. Yeah, they've got an incredible squad. I mean, look, you look at kind of the last two World Cups. Obviously, won it in 2018, runners up in Argentina, against Argentina and Qatar. You look at, the Euro. The Euros have been a little bit disappointing, right? Obviously, won it in 2000, but they were disappointing in 2020. They were, they got to semi-finals last time, but that's kind of like minimum requirement. They weren't that impressive when they got there. Like, this is going to be kind of Didier Deschamps' last dance, really. I just worry about that midfield. I know it's going to be a case of just like, right, you get the ball and just pass it to Elise or Dembele or Mbappe or whatever it might be, but that central midfield is rough.
And there's still Rodri in that midfield, even though, trust me, I love him cut N'Golo Kante to pieces. And I'm trying to think. I don't know if he's projected to start. Probably. I think Tunanemi, the Real Madrid defensive midfield, is probably going to end up in mid there too. Plus, what's going? Oh, go ahead.
Like, he loves Rabiot, right? Like, it could be Rabiot and Tchouaméni. It could be Zaire Emery. Zaire Emery's been fantastic for PSG. Like, they could be absolutely fine, and I'm just overthinking it. But it just feels like we're so sort of intent on like that front three, the combination of those front three.
Which is weird because thinking back to the last Euros, France played so conservatively. Like, France did not score that many, if any, goals from open play. I mean, I think they had. I mean, the France-Portugal game was an ugly game to watch. That was a 0-0. I'm like, I could be doing so many better things instead of watching this game. I mean, Michael Oliver could not have an easier game to ref in his entire career.
And it's funny, isn't it? Because I think about Olivier Giroud being that kind of super sub, and obviously he's not here this time. Is it like Jean-Philippe Mateta? It's just like, I mean, Mateta scores a lot of goals for Crystal Palace, but it's like volume rather than like quality. You wouldn't want to rely on him in a big moment. He threw on goal so many times and just blasted it straight to the goalkeeper. Like, does he even touch the squad? Is it like Thuram that comes on
Cherki?
Yeah, I mean, Cherki would, I guess, come on for one of the wingers, right? But I just think that's the thing. They've got a lot of kind of like weird decisions to make. I guess their defense is fine, right? They've got Konate, they've got Upamecano, Saliba, Lacroix's not bad.
Well, who knows what's going to happen when Saliba's back, because who knows if he even plays.
Yeah, it's tough. I just think potentially Spain is a little bit more well-rounded. Like, you've got, Yamal is potentially going to be, out for a couple of games, or at least the first game, but then you've got Ferran Torres who's had a fantastic season. You've got Orizabal, you've got a really strong midfield, and Gavi and Pedri and Rodri and all these different things. Like, I just think maybe Spain are a little bit more well-rounded. What do you think about that?
I think Spain's midfield is probably better. I mean, I don't think Rodri is quite what he was 2 years ago, but he just brings such a calmness to that team. Probably wears the own ban on Yamal. Who knows what happens? It looks like Cucurella is leaving Chelsea, but he'll end up playing left back.
Yeah. I just think you mentioned there about Rodri, and he brings that calmness. International football is so much slower than the Premier League. Like, I think, he will just relish that. He'll just pass it off to the creators. Yamal's obviously going to be fantastic. The defense, I guess, is no better than France's. I just think that midfield is slightly better, and that could be a big thing. But there's one team that I'm really interested in, Dylan, and that's Portugal.
I'm glad you mentioned Portugal, because in midfields, nobody's better than Portugal.
Exactly. You think about years gone past, and Bruno Fernandes has been like a nice player to have in that Portugal team. This year, he's I think the player of the season in the Premier League with all those assists. He's been absolutely fantastic. And then you've got obviously the PSG core with João Neves and Vitinha. You've got Nuno Mendes at right back. You've still got Bernardo Silva. We're not even mentioning him, right? Who's had another fantastic season for Man City. I guess that kind of front three again maybe just has kind of question marks because they're probably gonna have to play Ronaldo. He's not really gonna sit on the bench, which means it's probably Ronaldo. Pedro Neto and I guess Leao, right? And
Gonzalo Ramos.
Yeah, I think they'd be much better off just playing Ramos and bringing Ronaldo on as a kind of super sub, right? I just don't think he's going to accept that role. But Mateus Nunes has just had a fantastic season for Manchester City as a fullback.
Vitinha.
Yeah, I just think they're loaded. Absolutely loaded. Rafa Leao's stock is massively dived, but I think he's still an exciting player. And
that's if he doesn't punch any. But that's if he doesn't punch any more opponents. Did you see his punch the other day?
I didn't. Was it full on? Or?
Oh, it was better than anything. Well, it might. Well, let's just say it earned Rafael Leao a red card. Not good.
He's not the first player to lose his temper in a major stage, right? But
for neither one of our teams. We've had multiple players sent off in World Cup games.
I just think we've now mentioned all the teams that can potentially win the World Cup. I think it's literally Spain, France, Portugal. Maybe we say England just because of just expectations. I don't think it's going to be a Brazil or Argentina World Cup. I don't think Germany are strong enough, despite the fact I think they're slightly better than the people are potentially giving them credit for. But then, dark horses that people are talking about of Japan, who have had a fantastic qualifying campaign, then beat England in a warm-up game. You've got Norway, who has scored bundles and bundles of goals, and obviously led the line by Erling Haaland. They've got Odegaard and other exciting players in that Norway team. But how far are they really going to go, Dylan? They're going to run into one of these juggernauts, and that's going to be it, I think. So I don't think this is one where we see a Morocco make a run into the semi-finals. I think it's going to be very kind of clear cut. To me, it could easily just be France, Spain, England, Portugal as that kind of semi-finals, and then
could it be a replay of similar to 1990 where 4 World Cup winners or maybe 4 super teams make the semis? Would it surprise anyone if Argentina, Spain, France, and England play in the semis?
Oh, exactly. I think the difficulty one is choosing between an Argentina and Portugal because they're going to play at some point, and it's almost going to be a Messi Ronaldo showdown, even though neither of them are probably going to be the most influential players of that team. One thing I really do think is worth noting is about people that are going to have standout World Cups. Julian Alvarez could have a fantastic World Cup for Argentina. I don't think he's the one that people really focus on in that team. They think about Messi and Lautaro Martinez. You've obviously got Enzo Fernandez, who is fantastic. I think Julian Alvarez is the one that, the season he's just had is probably the one they would be really relying on if they think they're going to make it deep into this tournament.
Agree. Plus, Alvarez scores big goals for club and country.
Yeah.
And plus, this guy, Lautaro Martinez, scores pretty big goals too for.
Yeah, when I say I think Alvarez is better, it's it's touch and go. One of them could have the game, the next one could take over, right? But
I don't think we've talked enough about this, but there's a couple managers of famous club teams now managing national teams, and obviously the biggest is Carlo Ancelotti with Brazil. We know what Carlo Ancelotti has done in Europe. He's won the Champions League more than any other manager. But how will he and Brazil do this tournament? Because Brazil won the last World Cup for the U.S. in '94, but this Brazil side, probably lacks some of the star power. Obviously, Rafinha with Leeds United, Vinny Jr., who knows if Neymar ever fit. But the one thing I like about this Brazil side with Gabriel and Marquinhos, I think they're going to be very difficult to score. And if Alisson somewhere near his best.
Yeah, look, I think it's funny, isn't it? Because like Ancelotti, I think a lot of people have got concerns about whether he's an international manager or not. Ultimately, if he based his career on tournament play, then obviously a prolific Champions League winner. I do think you make a really good point about like the two centre backs being very solid. Obviously, Marquinhos has just won back-to-back Champions Leagues. Gabriel has just won the league with Arsenal for the first time in years. I don't think they know how to line up, like what their team's going to be, right? Like, and I think that's a major problem. Like, Vinny Jr. is going to have to play, but I don't know if he's ever really done what's expected of him. Then you kind of got Martinelli who's a bit meh. You got Cunha who's a bit meh. Like Rafinha. I don't know. I just think they're missing something. And maybe I'm completely wrong. Like you look at the season that like Casemiro's just had for Manchester United, like fantastic. Bruno Guimaraes bringing a bit more energy next to him. Maybe they've got the kind of building blocks there to be really good. I don't even think they know who they want to play in goal, Dylan. Like they've like Alisson or Ederson, right? I mean, assume it's Alisson, but like I think there's just so many unknowns about Brazil. Is Neymar going to play any part? Like, why else would you take him if you're not going to play? But he hasn't played for Brazil in a couple of years, right? He's been in the wilderness. So is Igor Thiago going to come on a lot? Is he going to start? It's such a weird. I just think there's too many question marks about Brazil.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to find out. But, and Brazil's first game is against Morocco. And I'm like, that's probably probably one of the 2 or 3 most interesting group stage games. I think another one's probably Uruguay, Spain. And with that being the third game, there's a chance that Spain and Uruguay might have 6 points and be benching everyone.
Yeah.
But that France-Morocco game, I mean, we know what Hakimi can do, and I'll tell you this, I bet you call Ancelotti did not want to see Morocco that first game.
Yeah, it's funny. I don't think Morocco are what they were in 2022. I don't even think they're quite the team that weirdly won the African Cup of Nations, right? But like, they have got those kind of standout players, with Brahim Diaz and Hakimi, but I think a lot of it's just based on kind of like solidity, and they will frustrate teams. They will definitely frustrate teams, and they will make it hard for Brazil. And I think it will be a massive signal of intent if Brazil go there and go and put 2 or 3 past Morocco and look really solid while doing so. I think it's good for you mentioned Ancelotti wouldn't want it, but I think it's a good guiding stick to say, hey, this is what we're about this tournament. We're going to be really good, or they're going to really labour to a draw, or maybe a 1 or 2-1 win or something, and be disappointed. So there's always such an expectation. You think expectations are high for England, like Brazil should always be high, right? And I just don't think they've got it's gone of the years where they've got Ronaldo's and Ronaldinho's and Kaká's, and it just feels like they're missing Roberto Carlos and all those sorts of players, right? It feels a long time. Last World Cup we were talking about Richarlison and things like that. Like it's such a strange period for Brazil. It's a lean time, and not sure what to think about them.
How do you think the heat plays a factor? Obviously, travel is going to be more like the 2020 Euro was, but how do you think the heat plays a factor? Especially for a team, I'm not going to mention that, but you might be familiar with what I'm referring to.
There was already pictures of us struggling in the Florida heat, and Dylan, you'll know just what the heat's like over there at the moment. But
yeah, it sucks.
But It will be a factor. It can't not be a factor, right? And it will slow the game down. But I think that's international football in general. I think if we start worrying about weather already, we're already beaten. I honestly believe that. Like I sit there and I think, Dylan, like as a kid growing up, if we were playing Sunday league football, which is like the lowest level of football you can play, means you weren't very good at football. We wouldn't worry if it was hot. We would just, you'd still play. You're not going to faint on the pitch, right? These players know their bodies. A lot of them have played in hot conditions. They've been over there for a couple of weeks now. Like, if it will slow things down, there will be these drinks breaks, and that is going to kind of disrupt flows and things like that. I just think there's always this kind of like, South American teams are going to do better because they're used to conditions, and you should look out for Brazil and Argentina. I just don't think that's true. I don't think you can just replace talent, right? Like if France and Spain, they play in reasonably warm conditions, but nothing like this, right? So are they suddenly going to make this, the excuse?
Anybody remember the 2020 Euro games in Seville, Spain? Those were hot.
And I just think, look, I think it's. You mentioned travel as well, like people saying, like England have got one of the worst travel schedules and all this sort of thing. It's like, guys, like these are professional athletes paid hundreds and thousands of pounds a week to sit on an aeroplane and then go and do some training. Like they'll be all right. Like they have all the best, coaches and conditioning coaches. They're on these like tight regimented schedules. They've got recovery. They've got these cryo chambers. They've got, we haven't even mentioned the kind of air-controlled stadiums, Dylan. I mean, I saw someone do a big breakdown on who's going to play the most games in an air-controlled stadium. It's absolutely, like, you can't discount it because it is a thing. If that's the reason that England didn't win a World Cup,
then that's the lamest excuse I've ever heard.
100%. Because you've got a squad. That's why you've got a squad. Like, if let's say Marcus Rashford starts on the left and he's, completely burnt out after 60 minutes, you bring on Anthony Gordon, who's just signed for Barcelona for 30 minutes. If Saka comes off, we've seen what Madueke can do, and the impact he can make, as they've done for Arsenal so many times. The biggest issue is, like, if Kane has to come off, and he will have to come off, there's such a drop-off. Now, I really like Ollie Watkins. I think he's had a fantastic season. I think that I've been pretty biased against him because of what happened against Nottingham Forest in Europe. But like, he's a fantastic player, and I thought he showed a lot when he was last called up to a major tournament for England. But then we've like bought Ivan Toney, which is apparently because he's going to be used to the heat because he's coming from the Saudi Arabian league. Like, it's like is Ivan Toney just going to come on for penalties? Like, what's the It's such a people like for like swaps, right? They want to take off, but as you take off Kylian Mbappe and you bring on Olivier Giroud in past tournaments. If you take off Harry Kane, you're bringing on Ollie Watkins. There's nothing you can do. You can't get away from replacing these unbelievable players, right? And I just think you've got to do it. You've got to just manage the squad, and if Reece James is really struggling, get him out. We've got every player that would come on as a substitute for England would start for 50% of the other teams in the tournament, right? And that's what you've got to think about. Morgan Rogers would start for basically every single nation except for maybe Spain and France, right?
By the way, speaking of France, did you see Alessi score a hat trick tonight?
Yeah. I mean,
he's ready for the World Cup. And by the way, Saliba played 45 minutes, so he looks okay, I think, that back.
Yeah. What if I think about, let's go back to players for a minute, Dylan. Obviously, I mean, that's actually, before we move on, what do you think about the weather and the travel? Like, are you factoring that in, or are you just kind of like me? It's like, that's a really lame excuse. Let's move on from that.
I'm like, let's play. I don't care if it's 150 degrees or -20. Let's go.
Yeah, agreed. Players and standout players, like we've talked, very briefly talked about Julian Alvarez and potentially having a big impact. If you were to pick the Golden Boot right now, let's say a favourite for it and a dark horse, who would you be picking?
Well, favorite. I mean, it's hard not to bet against Mbappe. What he's done in World Cups. I mean, he only one or two men to score a hat trick in a World Cup final. And the other guy, I can't believe I'm calling this guy a dark horse because seemingly he scores big goals. And finally get to see him at a World Cup. Mr. Haaland.
Yeah. I mean, look, I think Haaland's a really interesting one because a lot of people have mentioned how Norway is kind of dark horse, and I do have them finishing second in the group behind France, and they might even win it, right? But Senegal are just going to be notoriously difficult to break down. France are going to be hard to break down. You mentioned there about how they're quite defensive. Like, is he really going to go and get like 2 goals a game against those two? Because I don't know how far Norway are going to get. Like, I think that's if you're a Norway believer and you think they're going to get past the, round of 32, like I have them playing against Ecuador, and I think they lose that, right? So then I think that's where, I mean, first of all, Mbappe, like the most perfect bet of the tournament. Doesn't matter what he is. The problem with Mbappe is he just keeps falling out of his teammates. But, he scores goals, he turns up, he does it, right? I think if I was taking, one from kind of the top of the betting, I think I'd probably agree with you that it's probably Mbappe. But I do like Oyarzabal as well. I do think he's been kind of showing up for Spain. I've mentioned Julian Alvarez and liking him. But I've got a bit of an off-the-wall selection for top goal scorer. Well, I've got 2, and I'll mention both of them. I really like Enner Valencia for Ecuador. So they're playing against Ivory Coast and Curacao in the group, obviously in Germany as well. I think he can score against Germany, first of all. I think that's important. If I think he's going to be a top goal scorer, I think he has to be able to score against that caliber of team. I think he, gets a brace against Curacao. He could score against, Ivory Coast. That's already 4 in the group. I know we're playing perfect ideals, right? But let's say, he does that and he scores in every game and scores 2 against Curacao. That's 4. And then, as I said there, I think he can play against Norway. That gets them into a match then with, who do they come up against next? Then it's Brazil, right? So then that's like potentially where they run out of luck. But I just think they're probably, with these kind of group games, I mean, there's a lot of talk about these like bigger tournament this year and having that extra, knockout stage, and just there's going to be some really, really bad teams make it to the knockouts this year.
I mean, with 8 third-place teams, there will be some rubbish teams playing knockout games. I mean, you imagine if France got Haiti, what would the scoreline of that game be?
Like, I'm looking at it like Portugal could get Algeria, right? And then it could be, I mean, Korea against Bosnia is a bit of a weird one. That's what I've got apparently written down here. Mexico, Paraguay. So there's like some tough games, right? But it'd be really funny if you end up playing against Scotland in the knockouts. There'll be 2 teams that have been very thirsty for success, and then you'd have to take on the mighty Scott McTominay. But the other dark horse I quite like, and he's been a top goal scorer in an international tournament before, is Patrick Schick for the Czech Republic.
Yeah,
they have got obviously Mexico, Korea, and South Africa in their group. Now, South Africa are just bad, right? First of all, South Africa, bad team. Then you've got South Korea, I think, pretty solid defensively, but not a very exciting team. I'm pretty sure that, Schick can, score a goal there, and certainly he's going to be on penalties and things like that. Will he score against Mexico? Probably not, right? But what does that then, leave them? They're probably playing Belgium, if they get it to that kind of thing. I don't think Belgium are impenetrable, so gets a goal there without getting before he gets kicked out of the tournament. Now, obviously in England, we get this kind of each way, so it's like anybody that finishes in the top 4 of the of the top goal scorer list, we're going to get 1/5 of the odds, so it's worth it for us to take those long shots. If you're just going win only, then it has to be kind of Mbappe or Azarba, with Julian Alvarez being an exciting option.
Yeah, and also, what's interesting? I mean, depending on what country you are, I mean, there's probably like top, who's going to be the last host country standing? U.S., Canada, Mexico.
Yeah, I think it's a tough one because I think like Mexico would like their chances of doing it, but I think they run into England quite early. You might have that kind of game where you can go one step above. And, Mexico are not the team they used to be, right? They used to have kind of Chicharito and Javier Hernandez up front, and they used to have a couple of exciting midfielders. I think we're probably past that stage of them being this kind of like dark horse team, other than just being good at in the conditions. But yeah, I'm not sure. I think the other interesting thing to think about is the Golden Ball winner, which obviously goes to the player of the year, the player of the tournament. Sorry, like Messi got it when they finished runner up to, in 2014, right? When they finished runner up to Germany, and then Modric obviously got it in 2018 when they finished runner up to France, and then obviously Messi got it last time when they won the tournament. But it does feel like you can kind of get the best player of the tournament by finishing runner-up, in which case, like, if I projected a Spain-Portugal final, then I'd be kind of looking at a couple of players from each of those teams. Bruno Fernandes being one, Yamal obviously being another. Yamal obviously second favourite in on the board to win it. Bruno Fernandes is 18-1. I mean, it's interesting. I think this is, again, it comes down to, if you think Argentina are going to go all the way, then Julian Alvarez is 33-1 for top goal scorer and 35-1 for top player. You can make some real money with that. But you're betting against Messi, who's won 2 of the last 3 tournaments, and if they get that far, he's probably going to have an impact, right? He's probably going to score some penalties, and so yeah, I think it's a really tough betting market.
All right, Tom, I am the trivia savant. Everybody tries to fail. Do you have any World Cup trivia for me?
Let me pick something out for you. Let's have a look. I didn't prepare this one this time, but I will find one.
Oh boy, should I give you a yellow card for that?
You probably should. Yeah, that's me not remembering that we do this every single podcast. First thing, there are 4 debutants at the 2026 World Cup teams. Which teams are they?
Cape Verde.
Mm-hmm.
Haiti.
Yep. Actually, I think Haiti have played in one.
Maybe. Curacao.
Yes. Cape Verde, Curacao, yes.
What federation is the other team?
So you've got one from the CAF, the CONCACAF, and 2 from the AFC.
Gosh. Is this going to be one of those? Wait. Oh, man. Now you've got me thinking. Wait. I've got 2 or 3?
You've got 2 of the 4. Haiti was incorrect.
Oh. And one of them's in Africa and the other's in Oceania. One's in CONCACAF.
You've got 2 in the AFC.
Okay, so they're both in.
You've got 1 in the Asian, and then obviously Curacao were in the CONCACAF, right?
Uzbekistan.
Yeah, and then a bonus point on that if you can name the player that we all know actually plays for Uzbekistan. There's only one that literally anybody knows.
Who?
That plays for Uzbekistan.
What league does he play in?
The Premier League.
Is he the guy who plays for Man City?
Yeah. Kusanov.
Kusanov.
Yeah. Yeah.
40.
So you got 3 of the 4.
What's the African team?
So you're missing. Yeah, you're missing an Arab team.
Iraq?
No, they've played in one. Famously managed once by Harry Redknapp for 2 qualifying games. There's a bit of a clue for you.
Yeah, but Saudi Arabia made the last World Cup. I know that, and then beat Argentina.
Their name is synonymous with a famous basketball player.
The basketball player would be what? Kareem Abdul-Jabbar?
More famous than that.
Suriname? No.
The name is literally the country.
Oh, Jordan. Duh, you idiot.
Get it. Jordan, Cape Verde, Curacao, and Uzbekistan are making their debuts at the 2026 World Cup, which is exciting, right? I mean, it's tough that it's taken.
Enemy for Haiti. We know Haiti's got 0 chance to win the World Cup. Haiti will not win the World Cup. But the fact Haiti made the World Cup is such an accomplishment.
They potentially won't even score a goal, which is really tough.
Who does Haiti face?
Scotland, Brazil, Morocco, I think.
They might get one out. I'm not even sure they score against Scotland, Mike.
And then I want you to think about the best player in the world to not play at the World Cup this year.
Kevin Feely.
There you go. How hard is it for this guy that he's probably never going to play a World Cup?
Well, if he played for the state of Georgia rather than the country of Georgia, that might help things.
I'm sure that will go down well with his home contingent. Let's see if I've got any more for you.
Erling Haaland and Martin Odegaard ended up in a World Cup. Maybe he'll end up in the Euros. Georgia ended up in the Euros not that many years ago.
Yeah. So Turkey's Hakan Şükür holds a record for the fastest goal in World Cup history back in 2002. How quick was it?
7 seconds?
Slightly more.
Oh, 12.
No, 11 seconds Hakan Şükür scored. Can you name the team that he scored it against?
That's an interesting one. Wasn't that the World Cup Turkey made the semi-final?
Let's have a look. I don't know if they got that far. Might have done. They definitely got past this team. Let's have a look. Yes, they did. They finished 3rd place.
Yeah. Would this have been the group stage, or would this have been the knockout round where he scored the super early goal?
This was there was a playoff game. 3rd place playoff game.
Oh, to South Korea.
Yeah. One of the hosts that year, obviously Japan and South Korea, right? And Hakan Şükür scored in 11 seconds.
And that's all we need to see about that World Cup, because that was a travesty with a bunch of referee errors from crappy officials.
Yeah, we don't need to labour on those too long, do we?
Clear idiot refs in the South Korea Italy game, South Korea Spain, the miss handball Germany and the U.S. I might be biased, but that sure looked like a handball in that game. But we'll leave it at that. Hopefully, we don't see any of this.
No, the best thing about that World Cup, in terms of symmetry and people that are a bit nerdy, Germany 1-0 in the round of 16, 1-0 in the quarterfinals, 1-0 in the semi-finals. 3 1-0s in a row to make it to the final, and then they go and lose 2-0. Can't even score that one goal again in the final.
Didn't Spain have 4 1-0 wins in 2010?
Let's have a look. It feels like a David Villa type.
I know Iniesta scored in the final.
Spain 1-0 against Portugal, 1-0 against Paraguay, 1-0 against Germany, and then 1-0 after extra time against Holland in the final.
And I'm not even looking at Google.
I know. And everyone talks about that beautiful Spain team and how amazing it was, but they basically won by 1 goal most of the time. They lost to Switzerland 1-0 in the group. They only beat Honduras 2-1. They only beat Chile by 1 goal as well. So maybe we misremember just how amazing that 2010 Spain team was, because they needed to.
And you know what? Arsenal won the league playing a lot of 1-0 games this year.
Yeah. So maybe we see just a really boring World Cup and there's just a few 1-0 victories. France are definitely going to do it that way. They're not going to go and beat teams to sleep, I don't think.
I don't think France can be that boring compared to the last Euros. Didier Deschamps is not playing boring football.
Well, it would be I don't know why he would, right? He's leaving after the World Cup anyway. He's got Mbappe, Elise, Doué, Cherky coming off the bench probably. Dembele, all these teams. He can't afford to play boring football. That can't be his lasting legacy.
Yeah, I don't think he should, but we'll see what happens.
Boy, you got to just win, haven't you? You got to win. But I guess, Dylan, final thing, unless you've got anything else, let's name the semi-finalists and then the eventual finalists, and then we'll come up with the winner between us.
I want to hear your answer first.
Okay. So I think the semi-finals will be contested between France and Spain and England and Portugal. And I think Spain and Portugal get to the World Cup final. And then because I don't want to pick Spain, I'm picking Portugal to win it all. Bruno Fernandes sets up Ronaldo for a header in the same way that he set up Casemiro all season long. I think people are sleeping on the fact that Bruno Fernandes could put those balls in for Ronaldo. I think you think about World Cups and Euros gone past, Ronaldo tries to do it all himself. If he's smart and just lets Bruno Fernandes have the ball, then with that midfield of Neves and Vitinha, I think there could be a really exciting team there because they've got a really good defense as well. So that would be my 4: England, Portugal, Spain, and France, with Spain losing out to Portugal in the final.
I so want to pick the U.S. to make a semifinal, but I know I would show my bias.
Well, look, I think one of the things that we've kind of talked about, right, in terms of
to make the semi, I don't think we're going to win the World Cup.
But let's say this goes how I expected in the group stages, then you've got Scotland in the round of 32. Now that's not exactly anything to be too afraid of. Then you're playing Belgium. Well, that golden era of Belgium's gone. Then you run into Spain in the quarterfinals. That's That's where it gets tough. I do think you can get to the quarters like through just like home.
By the way, in terms of semifinalists, I have 3 European squads and 1 team nations and 1 South American.
Yeah.
I have France.
Yeah.
I have Portugal. I have England and Brazil. I think Ancelotti makes a difference.
So you are anti my take on Brazil. Not is it? Let's say, because most of the time Brazil just have a bit of a no-name manager, right? Let's say they go in there with the managers they've had over the previous year. Do you think it's literally the Ancelotti factor as opposed to the team they've got right now?
Yep. Because Brazil teams were better than this one.
Yeah.
They have a world-class manager.
Yeah. It's really interesting. I think like if Ancelotti sorry, Dylan, you tell me who you think's going to get to the final first, and then I'll talk about Brazil with them.
France, Portugal, and it's going to be Viva la Blues.
Nice.
At MetLife on July 19th.
Nice. So I think if you think Brazil are going to get to the semi-finals, which I completely understand, I think that's like the best advert for hiring just the biggest name and the tournament pedigree, right? Like I think we've had years of, Gareth Southgate giving this good feeling to England, and then Didier Deschamps probably not being the very best choice. I would have picked probably Zinedine Zidane at this point, and he may still be the manager after this for France. But like, I think if you get Ancelotti and he gets that team to the semi-finals, because it's not, let's get it right, Dylan, it's not a good Brazil team. Then I think that's the biggest advert for managers make a huge difference.
Yeah, and maybe getting, although for whatever reason, it seems like foreign-born managers don't win World Cups, but Carlo Ancelotti's different.
Yeah, I mean,
Marco might be the difference maker between winning or losing a World Cup.
I think it's interesting, right? Because you've got a couple of those. You've got a few of those this year, right? Like you've got Pochettino in the US, you've got Thomas Tuchel winning. I mean, how opposite can you get than getting a German coach for England, right? Like it
reminds me of when you got a Swedish coach in the 2000s.
But like, I think with like, with Sven, it was like, okay, well, like, he had a long history in the game, but it was kind of a bit of a surprise. Like Tuchel felt like a sensible appointment. It's just like, this guy's German. Like, how can we really go to a World Cup with a German manager? And you've done it even like Klinsmann, right? Like it happens. Yeah, I just think when you think back to kind of like, De La Fuente for Spain and things like that, like it does seem to matter. Who's the best American manager these days? Like who would be the, it's not like you had.
Unfortunately, the best American manager is managing Canada, but that's another story.
Can't have it all, mate. Can't have it all.
I mean, he only got a few games with Leeds United, but
poor old Jesse. But there we go. Who knows?
I mean, I think this is going to be a crazy World Cup. I can't wait for 15 minutes of stoppage time with Pavlov going to drink breaks.
Yeah, by the way, one of the things that's really underrated is funny. My wife said this the other day, right? So they're having these drinks breaks. So they take, I think it's 3 or 4 minutes, right? I think it might be 3. But every time they take that 3-minute drinks break, they add 3 minutes on to the end of the half or the game. News just don't have the drinks break and then just have a normal time. Like, why are we adding on all this time?
Well, then otherwise, guys would collapse after 45 minutes.
But someone's going to inevitably fall over at some point injured, so you might as well just have a quick drink then. That's what they do in the Premier League, right? They just stop, have a quick drink, and away they go. They don't need a gel or a drink. Goalkeepers keep going down injured all the time at the moment, so people can have a tactical break. Like, just let's not have an official drinks break. It's just someone just fall over and pretend to be hurt, and let's just have a few drinks. Like, let's not make it more than it is, because that's going to happen regardless of the drinks breaks. Right? There's going to be, Anderson and Rice and Bellingham and all going to be on the floor at some point. So we might as well take our drinks in then.
All right, mate. Thanks for hopping on, and you know what? Maybe the 3 Lions will be rolling on July 19th.
I certainly hope so. This is the most pessimistic I've been about us, so maybe this is the time, Dylan. People will be bored of pessimism by now, but you've got to be sensible.
Reverse psychology.
Exactly. And then, obviously, we've got the US Open to think about as well. So, lots to be excited about this summer.
Yeah, it's going to be a crazy next couple of weeks. US Open, and of course, yesterday threw a monkey wrench and everything with what happened to Memorial.
How are we letting JT Poston win the Memorial, by the way? What's happened to golf?
Yeah, the last 2 Signature Series winners and the PGA winner have been
And we've got the first 2 major winners this year being, from the UK. So, let's make it a US Open World Cup double with Fitzpatrick and England. And I won't tell you which Fitzpatrick I'm taking.
Oh, wait a minute. You might be going down the right country, but you might need to have more hair for your choice then.
No. Well, I didn't think about Tommy Fleetwood, but maybe it's the Formula 1 irons of Justin Rose that are going to do it. Who knows?
Oh gosh, yeah. Thank you, man.
Thanks, mate.